Professor Quirrell, said Hagrid. Harry, Professor Quirrell will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts. Potter, stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. Can't tell you how pleased I am to meet you. What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell? Defence against the dark arts, muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. Not that you'll be needing it, Potter. He laughed nervously. You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. He looked over nervously. I've got to pick up a new book on vampires myself. He looked terrified at the thought. But the others wouldn't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself. It was almost 10 minutes to get away from them all. At last Hagrid made himself heard over the babble. Must get on, lots to buy, come on Harry. Doris Crockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led them through the bar and out into a small walled courtyard, where there was nothing but a dustbin and a few weeds. Hagrid grinned at Harry. Told you, didn't I? Told you was famous. Even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet you. Mind you, he's normally trembling. Is he always that nervous? Oh yeah, poor bloke. Brilliant mind. He was fine for a while he was studying out of books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. He met some vampires in the Black Forest, and they were a nasty bit of trouble with a hag. Never been the same since. Scared of students, scared of his own subjects. Where's my pink umbrella? Vampires? Hags? Harry's head was swimming. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting bricks in the wall above the dustbin. 3 up, 2 across, he muttered. Right, stand back, Harry. He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella. The brick he'd touched quivered. It wriggled in the middle. A small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later, they were facing an archway large enough for even Hagrid, an archway to a cobbled street which twisted and turned out of sight. Welcome, said Hagrid, to Diagon Alley. He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway, and Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into a solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons, all sizes, copper, brass, pewter, silver, self-stirring, collapsible, all sizes, said a sign that hung over them. Yeah, you'll be needing one, said Hagrid, but we've got to get your money first. Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside the shops, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary's was shaking her head as they passed, saying, Dragon liver, 17 sickles an ounce. They're mad. A low, soft hooting sound came from a dark shop with the sign saying Aelop's Owl Emporium, Tawny, Screech, Barn, Brown and Snowy. Several boys about Harry's age had their noses pressed against a window of a shop selling broomsticks. Look, Harry heard one of them say, the new Nimbus 2000, fastest ever. There were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes and strange silver instruments which Harry had never seen before. Windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens, eels' eyes, tottering piles of school books, quills, rolls of parchment, potion bottles, globes of the moon. Gringotts, said Hagrid. They had reached a snowy white building as they walked up the white stone steps. Standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold, was... Yes, said Hagrid, that's a goblin. He said it quietly as they walked up the white stone steps towards him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a swarthy, clever face, a pointed beard, and Harry noticed really long fingers and long feet. He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second set of doors, silver this time, with words engraved upon them. Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take, but do not earn, may pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have be warned, beware of finding more than treasure there. Like I said, you'd be mad to try and rob it, said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed them through the silver doors, and they were in a vast marble hall. Around 100 or more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter, scribbling in ledgers, weighing coins on brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading out of the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in and out of those. Hagrid and Harry made for a counter. "Morning," said Hagrid to a free goblin. "We've come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe." "You have his key, sir?" "Got it here somewhere," said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of mouldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin to the right of them, weighing a pile of rubies the size of glowing coals. "Got it," said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. "That all seems to be in order." "And I've got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore," said Hagrid importantly. "It's about the you-know-what in Vault 713. The goblin read the letter carefully. "Very well," he said, handing it back to Hagrid. "I will have someone come to take you to both vaults. Griphook?" Griphook was with yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed the dog biscuits back inside his pockets, he and Harry followed Griphook towards one of the doors leading off to the hall. "What's the you-know-what in Vault 713? Harry asked. "Can't tell you that," Hagrid said mysteriously. "Very secret. Hogwarts business. Dumbledore's trusted me. More than my job's worth to tell you." Griphook held the door open for them. Harry, who had expected to see more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downwards, and there were little railway tracks on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks towards them. It seemed to know its own way, because Griphook wasn't steering. At first they went through a maze of twisting passages. Right, left, middle foot, right. Harry tried to remember, but it was impossible. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of a passage and twisted round to see if it was a dragon, but too late. They plunged even deeper, passing an underground lake in which hung huge stalactites, and even deeper stalagmites grew from the ceiling and the floor. "I never know," Harry called to Hagrid over the noise of the cart. "What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite?" "Stalagmite's got an M in it," said Hagrid. "Don't ask me any questions now, I think I'm going to be sick." He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door on a passage wall, Hagrid got out, and he had to lean against the wall to stop his knees from trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside there were mounds of gold coins, heaps of little silver, columns of bronze. "All yours," smiled Hagrid. "All Harry's." It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they'd have had it from him faster than you could blink. How often had they complained about how much Harry cost to them? And all this time, there'd been a small fortune belonging to him, buried deep under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some into a bag. "The gold ones are galleons," he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon and 29 nuts to a silver sickle. It's easy enough. Right then, that should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll keep the rest safe for you." He turned to Griphook. "Vault 713 now, and can we please go more slowly?" "One speed only," said Griphook. They were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled around tight corners. They went rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leant right over the side to try and see what was down at the dark bottom, but Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole. "Stand back," said Griphook importantly. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. "If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there," said Griphook. "How long do you check it, see if someone's in there?" asked Harry. "About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a nasty smile. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top security vault, Harry was sure, and he leant forward eagerly, expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But at first he thought the vault was empty, and then he saw a grubby little package wrapped in brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what it was, but he knew better than to ask. Come on then, back in this infernal cart, and don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep my mouth shut, said Hagrid. One wild cart ride later, they stood blinking in the sunlight outside Gringotts. Hagrid didn't know where to run first now that he had a bag full of money. He didn't have to know how many galleons were in there to a pound to know how he was holding way more money than he'd ever had in his life, maybe even more than Dudley had ever had. Might as well get your uniform, said Hagrid, nodding toward Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. Listen, Harry, would you mind if I slipped off for a pick-me-up in the leaky cauldron? I hate them Gringotts carts. He did still look a bit sick, so Harry entered Madame Malkin's shops alone, feeling quite nervous.